So what I want to present at this time is the stages in change, because I believe you will all have experiences in change, including myself. Part of the reason that I can go all the time is because I get constant stimulation. And there's nothing canned about what I'm doing. Everything is cooked on the spot, so to speak. And that's so that I can be relevant. All right. And this is mostly cognitive at this moment. And what I've learned to do is to turn on certain sections of myself to be out front. I use Buckminster Fuller's idea of foreground, background. Everything is there, but then we pull something out into the foreground at a moment in time. And so what I'm going to do for this last nearly hour or 35 minutes or so is work on something that's purely cognitive, that you can look at in that kind of way. And of course, you will feel about it and all that, but this is a cognitive expression of what I'm doing. Much like reading an encyclopedia and getting all the facts, so to speak. However, it's not quite like that. One of the words that is very important to me is the word process. Process involves steps. Now, put it over here. Process involves steps. All right? And process is always associated with content. Process is usually verb, and content is usually nouns. And process is what determines the use of the content, so to speak. Thank you very much, Mary Grace. Now, what I'm going to present to you now are stages in change, or the process of change. And it is going to be perhaps oversimplified, just in order to make the point. And in a way, I'd like to equate it to a map. You know, when I go traveling, I like to get a contour map, and then I like to see all the major roads, and then maybe that's a map, and then I'd like to see the minor roads, so to speak. So I can look at a whole piece in some way, in three different ways, and I get a feel about the territory. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I like, again, a la Buckminster Fuller, to see the big picture, and then I can locate myself within that picture. So these stages of growth are, for me, universal. Any change goes through this. All right. Now, I dabble a lot in theology, physics, mathematics, art, and other forms of science, so to speak. I mean, there are a lot of things that fit together. I believe that we are constantly looking at microcosms of one thing and another, so that what I'm saying about change goes for everything, all kinds of change. Your toe grows bigger, your toenail grows bigger or smaller or whatever. Change is also related to growth. Now, growth can be in such things as cancer. It can be in such things as moving psychologically. It can be also physically moving according to plan. Change and growth are almost synonymous. I'm talking now about deliberate change. Deliberate change which opens the way for new possibilities. Okay. Now, at any point we would come into a life, and now I'm going to talk about human life. We come into a point which is at a status quo, meaning, status quo. Meaning that at this stage, any stage where we come into a life, there is a set of predictions about how that life is. And there is a stabilization of that at that moment in time. You can call it habit, what you're used to, whatever it is. All right. Now that status quo is invested in a system that enables you to make these predictions. And that system, that status quo and that system is responsible for a lot of people's feeling of survival. So that whatever is going on in a moment in time, what you are seeing at this level is already something that sees itself as a prediction. Maybe Bob, you found this. Physically, for instance, when an organ is transplanted in the body, one of the most important things that one has to look at is that the system tries to expel it. Wants to get rid of it, expel it. And so when all that means is that the system itself is balanced. I want to talk about two balances. Status quo is always in balance. Now one balance it comes about because one part pays more for the balance than the others do, the other parts. So we can say that one part dies so another part can live. That's one kind of a balance. Then there's another balance. By the way, that fits all pathological situations. The next balance has to do with each part gets as much as it gives, and it has a rhythm which makes that possible. So balance in and of itself simply means that somehow all the parts are worked together so that as a whole, it looks like a balance. And I'll give you the teeter-totter idea. If a fat one and a skinny one want to ride a teeter-totter, they can. But what happens is the fat one has to go very close to the middle, and the skinny one goes on the end, and the fat one gets a ride like that, and the skinny one gets a ride like this. Now that's perfect balance. The problem is that the fat one doesn't get much out of it. That's a picture of a balance that requires somebody to sort of die so somebody else can live. That's what I'm talking about. Now, if you have two people of the same weight, they can have a wonderful time together, so to speak. All right. Now, status quo is based in survival. This is something important to remember. Every one of you, and that includes me, because when I say you, I mean me as well. Whatever is going on at a moment in time, I have an investment in that is invested in a security. Because survival and security are together. This is why many times people say, I want to do something, and then they find they're not doing it. How many of you have ever had that happen to you? And then you say to yourself, I'm a person of good intelligence, and I have goodwill and all that. How come I want to do this and I don't do it? Well, there's a good reason for that, and that is that familiarity will always overcome the wish for comfort unless we know how to deal with it. That's another important thing to remember. Comfort has never been as powerful a motivator as familiarity. So that this is one of the things you'll find. And it again is a system is there. We'll take a physical example, and you got a new organ transplant and try to get rid of it. Okay. Now, so here we start at stage one. Whatever reason now we want to move in some way. I take people seriously when they say they want to change. I take myself seriously. Now, what has to happen for stage two is the entrance of a foreign element. All right, so enter a foreign element. Foreign element means that in some way we have agreed to allow something to come in that is foreign. Whenever we have a new idea that life can be better, I believe it was Judy who said when she thought about herself getting to be 40, and didn't you say that, Judy? And you wanted to, is that what you said? And that you wanted to have a life that fit more what you wanted? Okay. So you had a foreign element enter. You not only thought it, but you went, in this case, to a therapist. All right. Now, this foreign element has got to be very strong. When you are the foreign elements to somebody else's intervention in a system, this is a place where you stand all by yourself. You have absolutely no help. Doesn't matter how many people tell you or how many times they tell you, oh, I want to change. Because it's rooted in survival, and survival is rooted in security. This is the problem. This is a brand new thing. Now, stage two, you have to work hard to keep it. As a therapist, for instance, I often felt that people wanted to throw me out. And it wasn't because they didn't like me, and it wasn't because they didn't want to change. It was because it is so hard to move the status quo to something else. All right. Now, stage three is the natural outcome of stage two, the intervention of a foreign element. That's chaos. Now, chaos can be great or it can be little. But it means that no longer do the old rules for prediction apply. You can't now say, this is what I'm going to do, because that's not where it is. And in a way, I think, Lynn, you were into that this morning and have been in that. But many of you have been into that one. The old rules don't apply. And when we are someplace where the old rules don't apply, we are in this strange territory called the unknown. And none of us, since we've not been there before, have any real, reliable ways to treat the unknown. Now, all of you here, including me, are going into the unknown. Now, when you come to that unknown, you've already been there already. Some of you, at some point in time, may want to dig in your heels, and you want to go back to status quo. And that's not because you don't want to do something. That's because we are fighting, in a way, the power of the familiar. And what I do with that is I take you all seriously, as I take myself seriously about wanting to change, and also have a respect for the process of change, which is a very deep one and a very strong one to change. We can change things superficially very easily, but to make a deep change that comes is a very primary experience. All right. Now, in chaos, we are absolutely going by the seat of our pants. How many of you have had the experience of moving from non-adolescence of one of your kids to adolescence? Let me see how many of you had that experience. Let me see. All right, some of you have had that. How many of you have had the experience of moving from your parents' home, where they were taking care of you money-wise and all that, and to taking care of yourself? How many of you had that experience? Okay. Now, are you aware of how many questions you had? And how you didn't know if this would work, and how you didn't know if that would work, and how you finally gave yourself kind of a push, and you said, well, let me see what's going on? Nothing that you had before were you prepared for. What, Lynn?
I hate the chaos.
Well,
it's uncomfortable.
That's true.
And it's risky.
That's right, absolutely. It's essential. Now, this is where the celebration occurs. When people are in this, and I celebrate. If this doesn't occur, nothing has happened. And this chaos can be great, like Lynn is thinking about. I've had, for instance, when I was first working with people who had schizophrenic memory, this is where people would threaten suicide. They would have heart attacks when we got here, because I knew that something was changing. Remember, this is hard. Remember that we live into our status quo, and to move it is about the same as moving a mountain. It's one of the reasons why I have the most trusting atmosphere in which we can take these kinds of risks. So the presence of the chaos, I have two feelings about. One of celebration, thank God, and the next one is I move with very little increments. I ask people to make decisions that they can carry out in the next 10 seconds. And that's about enough time to, whether you cross one leg over the other, whether you look right or you look left. Not whether you're going to stay married or whether you're going to stay in a seminar or whether you're going to do whatever. Nothing like that. Those tiny, tiny little choices that get made. I don't allow any big choices because I know that people aren't there. They don't bring with them all of their possibilities because they're involved in the chaos. Now, this is healthy. But, like Lynn, there may be some of the rest of you who say that everything should be smooth all the time. There are people who grow up with that. So at the first indication of some kind of negativeness or something is out of order, it looks like somebody's going to swoon. So we learn from that we aren't supposed to cause chaos. Well, there's no way in this world that we can move without changing the status quo. A very simple example. I don't know if any of you have ever bought a new piece of furniture for a room. Have you noticed how you have to change other things to fit that? And that you may have changed the place of it, and you walk in and it used to be over there, and you sit down and there's nothing there. So this is, if I can impress on you enough about both the profoundness and the power of this, then you will know that you will not ask yourself to make change easily. Now, as I move with getting the cognitive parts and the intuitive parts and the body parts, help them to move into a different way, then we can move through this.